Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat with Girija. My name is Girija Patel. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I am a podcaster, I am an educator, I am a businesswoman, I am an entrepreneur, and I'm a lawyer. I truly believe in the power of mentorship through storytelling, and that's what Law Chat is all about. So whether you are in 6 months or 10 years of business experience, we can all learn from each other's experiences because we face the same challenges and we have the victories and we have mistakes that we're all making. So why not lean into them and know that we're going to be fine and we're going to be okay and we're going to be inspired. And of course, this is Law Chat with Girija, so we will be talking about some law at some point during the conversation. And if you love what you hear today, which I know you will, then subscribe to Law Chat with Girija and share the love. So grab your coffee, sparkling water, or wine, and let's dive in to the next inspiring mentorship session. Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat. Money is essential to any business's good health, and learning how to manage, understand, strategize your financial wellness can be overwhelming and quite downright stressful. I don't like it myself, and it can cause anxiety in the best of us. Today's guest takes away the financial worries and turns them into wins. Kate Grayson is the founder and CEO of Beyond Money, where she helps her clients strategize, plan, create healthy money habits, and then also support her clients to lead their best life and also to create a better future. So welcome, Kate. I'm so happy to have you as a guest on Law Chat today. And I gave a very brief description. There's so much more to you, and this is what Law Chat's all about. So let's get started. So
well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. And, I was saying earlier, I do research on all my guests that are coming in, and I know that Beyond Money didn't just start right out of some type of school that you had or some type of work. It really started from a very stressful time in your life. So I would love to kind of dive into that and talk about what the journey looked like prior to you starting Beyond Money.
Yeah, definitely. So it started years ago when I was living in Singapore at the time, living a completely different life, a successful, well-paid expat life. And I started to get very sick and was ultimately diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. And I ended up having to move back home to my family in Chicago because I just couldn't work anymore. So I went very quickly from earning a good salary in a forward-moving career that I love to suddenly being an unemployed full-time patient. And I really began to experience the degree to which, this financial stress and anxiety can eat away at really every aspect of your well-being. And the more I dug into my own finances, I started to just naturally talk to friends and family about it, much more than most of us are accustomed to, and saw how many folks around me were dealing with this too. Their lives looked great on the outside, but inside there was just endless in every direction, turmoil and stress around money. And folks felt like they had nowhere to turn for just honest, trustworthy, approachable advice. So that's why I initially started Beyond Money. And now we've grown. We have multiple coaches, and it's really fun to be able to, help more and more people out there, because money is tough and a lot of us need help with it.
Yeah. And money, it's hard to talk about. I also feel like it's something so sensitive. People don't like to talk about it. They also sometimes don't like to face the reality that might be existing, because it can cause a lot of emotional distress also, I think. But I know that you were diagnosed with Lyme disease. But before that, what were you doing at that time when you were working as an expat in Singapore? What was your job description then?
Yeah, definitely. So I moved to India right after college and worked for a clothing company, Fab India.
My goodness. Can we just pause for 2 seconds? Okay. Yeah. You're the second guest that I've had that actually lived in India, which is so crazy to me.
That's so funny.
Fab India is actually as fab as they call it. And so
totally.
It's really cool. That's amazing.
But fun fact, the fab actually stands for fabric, not fabulous. Initially.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So what were you doing for Fab India?
Yeah, so I worked for the managing director in sort of like strategic planning when I was in Delhi. And then in Singapore, I went there to focus on our like international retail expansion. Singapore was the flagship international retail store. And I was there to
Oh,
sort of turn it
wow.
around and focus on growing the region.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And so then I didn't even know they had a branch in Singapore, actually,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
doesn't shock me though, but okay.
And there are
And
a couple in Malaysia too. And
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Well, okay. Here's a plug for Fab India. But
yeah. We all love Fab India.
but with that being said, though, I know
Mhm.
that you were diagnosed with Lyme disease, and
Mhm.
then were you still working, or did you have to leave your job, or like what happened at that time?
Yeah, so actually, what happened is for maybe like 3 or 4 years before I ultimately left my job, I started getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I went to, I mean, at least a couple dozen doctors in
Hmm.
Singapore, Delhi, in the US, and all of them told me that it was psychosomatic, that it was in my head, that I was maybe, depressed or, needed a new birth control or
No
any of these things.
way.
Yeah. And I mean, it was to the point in Singapore where, it was taking me an hour or two to send a single email. I mean, my brain and sort of just functioning it just got so
Wow.
bad. Yeah. I went from being our managing director's like right-hand man to suddenly like it taking me 2 hours to send an email. And I still was not getting any, clear diagnosis or anything. And so I ultimately had to just leave my job before I was even diagnosed with Lyme disease, actually,
Mhm.
because I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't
Right,
function.
right.
So I moved back to Chicago without a job or a plan, without a diagnosis, anything. And fortunately, pretty soon after returning, I found a doctor who knew what was wrong and was able to get me on the path back to health.
Yeah.
But it was a journey.
I bet. And I bet it was very challenging and frustrating because you know something is wrong. Like you know your body better than the
Mm-hmm.
person sitting across the table from you. And it must have been so frustrating because it was completely debilitating your ability to function. How did you overcome that? I mean, I feel like that's a big challenge.
Yeah, thank you. And, I think it was just developing, faith and belief in myself. And just as you said, like, I know my body. I knew something was wrong. I knew I was not inventing this. I knew I didn't want it or whatever other reasons doctors were giving me. And so just continuing to advocate for myself until I found, a solution and I found a doctor who could help me. And I've never thought of it this way before, but this reminds me of sort of what my clients go through before they start working with us because we don't wake up one day and realize we have financial problems. We're stressed about it for months and years ahead of time. And
Mhm.
oftentimes we talk to our friends and say, oh, I'm worried about my budget or whatever. And your friend will say, oh, don't worry about it. Like, no biggie. Or you'll go to, your parents' financial planner or something and say, what am I doing wrong? And they'll say, oh, you're fine. But internally, like I knew with my health that I was not fine. And there's so many aspects in our lives where we really do need to advocate for ourselves and find the answers and the help that we need, even when it's not being offered up to us.
I love that. And I'm going to pause here for a second also because I feel that yes, this is Law Chat. We're talking about the business, but we're also talking a
Mm,
lot about, the guest personal journey as well, because personal and business is very interrelated. You can't
yeah.
disconnect the two and you can't function without the other either. And I truly agree with you that deep down, we know what's happening. And deep down, there is this voice that speaks very loudly and slowly gets louder and louder and louder. So don't ignore that voice. For anybody listening, don't ignore those voices because those voices, you can call them your sixth sense, you can call it, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, but it's there for a reason. And you know it better than the person that might be sitting, again, across from you because they may not understand. And I love that you have to advocate for yourself. You have to advocate for your business. You have to advocate for your personal health, mental, physical, all of the above. And I'm so happy that you also did not give up because sometimes when you hear experts tell you you get stressed and you're like, oh, okay, no big deal. I've had a situation myself where I've had experts tell me, oh, you're too young for that. Oh, that can never happen to you. Lo and behold, it totally happened. But because I advocated for myself and I was dogged about it, I was able to find something sooner than later where it didn't become so detrimental to my life, you know? And I think same with you because you're so young. I mean, it's not like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like you're older and there's some other issues that could happen with age. So I'm so happy you found a wonderful doctor also that listened, because that's hard to find as well.
It really is. I mean, I feel like for women in every area of our life, we're just confronted with people, in various aspects, not believing us, not believing in us, all of those things. And so I'm really happy to hear that you also advocated for yourself. I hope everybody listening can follow that.
So I think it's so cool that, I feel like just talking to you are such a voice of calmness. And I can imagine how your clients also must feel when they're talking to you about finances, because finances can get very stressful. It can be emotionally very like a roller coaster also. And so when you started diving into your personal finances, because you were unemployed for a while and you were also, I guess, financially struggling. So what were some of the steps that you took that eventually influenced your business that you founded?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest step, for myself, but then for anybody, wanting to address their finances, whether it be, with us, with somebody else, by yourself, is really just confronting it for the first time. And that sounds so simple, but it's the hardest part of the process. I mean, just opening all of your accounts, taking out a piece of paper, writing down the balances of your accounts, writing down the details of your debt, it's not fun, I'm not going to pretend that it is, but I cannot even begin to express just how impactful it is. And our clients are able to see such fast transformation and results. And obviously that's amazing, but I feel like I can take credit for, very little of that. So much of it is just them choosing to commit to this, choosing to say, okay, today is the day that I am opening my eyes. I am, taking off the blinders, and I am choosing to put my energy towards this. And then everything else really just falls into place miraculously quickly once you just choose to, that you are looking at it now.
I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So enter your contractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately. And they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now back to our awesome conversation. So when you started working on your own finances, trying to find and navigate your path, what made you start this business Beyond Money? What made you start this? And you started when, in 2019?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So, I really, really, really cannot tell you where the idea first came from. I had never heard of, financial coaching or anything like that. I had certainly heard of financial planning, but I knew that wasn't of interest to me. And it was just at some point during my Lyme treatment, this idea came to me, and I held it very close to the vest for a while until I was preparing to finish my treatment. And then I started telling, close family and friends that this is what I wanted to do. And the overwhelming response I got was, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine anything better for you to be doing. This is a perfect thing for you, even though none of them had ever heard of this either. It was right for me, and I'm not quite sure why, but.
That's so funny. So do you have any background in accounting or finances or anything like that?
No, I mean, I'd worked to an extent in like corporate finance at my past job, but not in any detail. And so I went, and I'd always been interested in, in finance and personal finance and good at math and stuff like that, but had no education on it. So I went and got a certificate in financial education once I knew that this is what I wanted to do. But really, I think that the biggest part of this is just being able to be a safe space for people, being able to be somebody around whom people feel comfortable opening up about, I think, the most vulnerable part of our lives. I can't think of anything these days that is more intimate than money. And the rest of it is just facts. Any of us can learn the components of a credit score and all of those things. But
Right.
I think that being able to be a comfortable, resource for people is harder to learn.
I'm like talking to you. I also realized that money is very transactional, but you've actually brought in the emotional component in your business, and understanding that emotional component that a person actually is going through, as transactional as money can be, and as black and white sometimes it can be, right? Assets, liability, whatever. But you're bringing in the emotional aspect to it, which I think is so underestimated and also overlooked by so many people, like whether you're wealth financial planner or somebody, and it can be intimidating, just like how law can be intimidating. I think anything about money can be intimidating too.
For sure. And especially because all of the, information that we're usually and advice that we're usually given is so shame-based. Like even just the traditional, like, skip your latte and, that's how you buy a house or whatever. I myself am a good example of that, because when I was, deep into my Lyme treatment, I could barely walk. I mean, I was sleeping like 14 hours a day, and my one activity every day was walking a block to go get a coffee. So that was not just, $3 wasted. That was my one, human interaction. That was my one, step outside the house. That was like much more than, a latte to me. And yet so much of the advice just takes away the whole context of your life and just gives, blanket, this is bad, this is good.
Wow. That was actually very profound what you just said, because you're right. Because, sometimes it just seems as easy as, skip that latte. But you're right. For people who are introverts, or for people, especially like getting out of this pandemic, who have been extra careful, or who have been sitting in their home because of the fear that this pandemic has caused, going for that latte can be life-changing. Going for that one extracurricular activity that does cost $3 a day or $5 a day, but it's life-changing on so many different levels that taking it away would be so much more detrimental than just, you're saving $5, right? Like, you are. I'm not taking away from that. But so many other things that are like part of that, like for you, it was the exercise, mobility, stretching your cognizant, abilities as well, and interactions with other humans. It's just so.
Yeah, that's worth a lot more than $5 to get a dose of that.
That's like unparalleled, right? That's priceless. You can't put value on that. And so while you are paying $3 for that, but you're getting so much more in your development, especially when you're coming out of something, like in a physical, emotional sense also that you're fighting. So
yeah, for sure.
So yes, I agree with you. I think, if you're looking at just the transaction, yay, but also look at the bigger picture and see what you're getting out of it. And if that is valuable, go for it. Skip somewhere else.
Yeah, totally. And that's really the whole foundation of, at Beyond Money, our belief with our clients is that, money should be aligned with your values. I mean, I know that sounds a little cheesy, but the things that you prioritize and are important to you and are valuable to you in your life, those are where your money should be funneled. And, things like budgets get a bad rap, but honestly, when your spending is aligned with what you most prioritize, budgeting is really fun because all of your money gets to go towards things that you love. And all you have to do to make that happen is skip on some of the things that you don't even really care about.
I love that. So if I was to come to you as a client and you were to say to me, hey, this is what you do to align your priorities and your financial health with your personal values, how would you do that? What are some of the tips that you would be giving me to do that?
So I think starting with, well, we start all of our clients with tracking their spending manually, which is nobody's favorite part of the experience, but it's really important because it teaches you to start to like observe in the moment how you're reacting to a purchase. You know, is it something that you like spending on? You know, does it make you happy, or do you feel a little, you know, regretful or mournful or anxious afterwards? You know, does what in your through your life, you know, through your spending, through your purchases sort of uplifts you, and what makes you feel like it's, you know, not aligned with the version of yourself that you want to be. So starting there is always our best tip.
Awesome. And then what would be some other tips that you would be giving to, you know, complete that process?
Yeah. So then we look at, you know, where your spending is in each category, and we break it down into your financial priorities. So things like paying off debt, building up savings, investing, you know, things that are of financial import to you in your future. Then we're looking at your, you know, your fixed costs, which are hard to change on a day-to-day basis. They're, you know, the big decisions in life, like where you live, what kind of car you drive, you know, all those types of things that you have points where you can change those, but not day to day. Then we're looking at your sort of lifestyle decisions. And this is where you can make the most room for change because, for example, you know, all of us have to eat, but not everybody has to do like I do and buy, you know, $12 honey at the farmer's market. You know, that is very much like a lifestyle decision of mine, and accommodations have to come from other places. But I'm happy to make that happen if it means I can, you know, spend $100 at the farmer's market every week, you know?
Yeah.
So the most that you like really just get it out on paper, then you can start to play with, you know, what does spending more or less in this area change? You know, if I want to max out my 401k, which is great, you know, where do changes need to come from in order to make that, you know, number one priority happen?
Oh my gosh, I love that. So we're looking at what essentially brings us joy when we're spending money and what doesn't bring us joy when we're spending money. And then our fixed costs, the hard costs that you just have to pay regardless. And then the expenses that we like, liabilities or debts that we need to pay off also. And then our lifestyle choices. I love that. So if we just kind of focus on those four things and then assess what is needed, what's not needed, and where we can kind of, again, take that money away and then put it somewhere else and later maybe have enough. So I like how the focus though starts with what are the expenses that bring you joy? What are the things that align with your priorities or the values that you have or just your happiness? I just love that that's like one of the focuses of your business. And so when you have clients that are coming to you and they're struggling though to figure this out, how do you help them figure that out? How do you help them give them clarity?
Yeah, it's really just through conversation. You know, there's no like magic question or, you know, just worksheet that I have everybody fill out and then we say, oh, we've got the answers to your life. You know, it usually sort of starts from the other side of like, what's keeping you up at night? You know, why have you come to us? What is so stressful in your finances in your life that is causing you to want to, you know, invest in turning it all around? And a lot of people, for a lot of people that comes back to debt or perhaps having like low balances in savings, which can be very stressful. A lot of us live paycheck to paycheck despite having, you know, six-figure incomes and have nothing in savings, you know, just living like on an endless paycheck to paycheck cycle, you know? And so for a lot of people, that's where we want to start is figuring out, you know, what needs to change in order to make you sleep better at night. And there's no right or wrong answer here. I could have two clients with identical on paper financial situations, and perhaps one is incredibly troubled by their credit card debt and wants to get that paid off. And perhaps the other one is incredibly troubled by having no money in savings and sees the credit card debt as, you know, a second level problem, but not the number one problem. And so we tackle with, I don't come in with a prescribed, idea of, okay, this is the first step, this is the second step, this is the third step. It's really about figuring out what will make each individual person feel supported by their money.
I love that. And it's more customized
Yeah.
your approach rather than this is the model and let's fit into this model.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And you have such a holistic approach. And I would assume that, and maybe I could be totally wrong, but that is probably not what the industry standard is.
Correct. It's not. And it's really harmful. A lot of my clients have gone to, have financial planners who they've gone to in the past and have said, what's wrong? Like, how am I earning all of this money and I'm in all of this debt? I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. And the planner takes one quick look at their budget and says, oh, things looks like you're in good shape. Things should be under control. And they're like, well, why am I in $30,000 of credit card debt if you're saying things look like they're under control? And just a lot of, obviously there are many, many wonderful financial planners out there, a lot of whom I am happy to consider friends and refer business to and all of that jazz. But the norm is still definitely the other side of the spectrum.
Right. And so how are you disrupting the industry then?
I think just by focusing on like the actual level of it that matters. There's a lot less money to be made in paying off credit card debt than there is in, investing wealth. But it's a really underserved area of the market. And it's not just people have this idea that either you are super low income or you are super high income and have tons of assets and have a financial planner and life's great, but the middle of the spectrum is where most of us lie. We might have decent income, great income even, but that does not mean that we have our spending and our, asset allocation, all of that under control. And it's just an area that's been forgotten by financial services.
That's awesome. And then so for the person that is like, just loves to spend money, they love to shop, they love to do all of that. How do you, what would you say to them and how do you help them, kind of reel them back in a little bit?
So I would separate that into two pretty different categories of people.
Okay.
Some people just love to spend, love nice stuff, all of that. I consider myself in that category. And second is people with, more deep-rooted, sort of addictions to shopping and things like that, which is a different type of situation. It's easier to reel in the person that just loves nice stuff because, it's for myself, I have a rule that I have to, before I buy something, I have to be thinking about it for a week before I'm allowed to buy it. And that reins in impulse shopping and, all that. And then, I often make sure with clients that we have all of your financial priorities covered first, so as long as you're putting the amount that you've dedicated to investing or debt payoff or whatever it may be, as long as that's going out first, I don't really care what happens with the rest of the money. If you've said, you have $2,000 a month or something for shopping, eating out, groceries, whatever, it doesn't really matter if 1 month that's all shopping and the next month that's booking a couple trips and the next month that's a lifetime supply of honey at the farmer's market. It doesn't really matter as long as your foundations and bases are all covered.
Yeah, I see that. I think, I like to shop a lot also. And, and I especially think with Amazon and the advent of, just online shopping and then people holding your credit card. One thing I do is I don't let my with Amazon, you have to put a credit card in there. But a lot of these other websites, you don't have to have a credit card in the system.
Yeah.
And so I try to stay away from that because then that makes me have to pause and then also think about it. And then, the extra mile of getting that credit card to pay.
Yeah, totally. And I think different people can utilize there's so many different tips like that. There's, not having your credit card info saved. There's having a just no online shopping rule for yourself. There's blocking the Instagram ads that are really tempting, like all sorts of things that we can do. But I think it really comes back to knowing and developing trust in yourself, and knowing what will help you achieve your goals. Mm-hmm. For me at times, because I've tried all of the, tricks and stuff just to get a feel for what works, for different people and stuff. And for me, taking the credit card out of my phone or out of my computer does nothing. It just causes like an annoyance for me, but I have cultivated already the ability to be like very intentional about what I'm choosing to purchase. So by the time I get to the purchase page, I'm already going to buy it. It's already something that I've, spent time considering. Is this, do I have the money? Is this where I want my money to be going? Is this something I really want? Do I have anything else like this already? Mm-hmm. And so then by the time, I get to the purchase page, the credit card is just, the last step, but the decision's already been made.
Yeah. Okay. I like that you said that, because I like how you said cultivate the intentionality of purchasing. And so how do you do that with your clients? When they walk in through your doors, how do you help them develop that intentionality? Whether it's spending or just the intentionality of having a financial wellness. How do you your clients?
Yeah. So unfortunately, there's no like one size fits all, solution or game plan here, because for some people it's already sort of innate and we just need to sort of turn the faucet on for like starting to listen to these things. Some people come to me already having clear understanding of what they value, either, sort of in a political, sort of cultural sense, or in a just personal, like, shoes are important to me, but purses aren't, or whatever. Some people already have that sense. And then some people, a lot of us are just so used to the noise of all of the shopping and marketing and all of that you have to build it from scratch. So we start with just talking and observing, and we go through, last week's spending, and, go through like line by line sometimes, and ask like, okay, what did you buy at Lululemon? Like, okay, did
Target?
Yeah. And just really like figuring out what your triggers are. With one client, we realized recently, well, she realized, I'm just the sounding board, but that Saturday mornings were her shopping trigger. And it was because working from home now, on Saturday mornings, she was just so eager to leave the house and go somewhere, but there weren't that many places to go. And, so it turned into like all of her just sort of anxious energy about the pandemic and her career and all of that somehow got channeled into Saturday morning shopping. And
that's really great, actually, to kind of sit and think about the triggers, and also just kind of really think about the different buckets that you have in your business and where the money needs to go first. So, I know that you founded Beyond Money out of some challenges that you were facing. Now, after you've started the business, what are some of the challenges that you have faced, and how have you come out victorious?
I love that question. I would say that the biggest challenge has, continues to be making sure that the business exists and grows in a way that's aligned to me. When I first started, I thought that I just wanted, to be a solopreneur, basically to have a good and flexible job for myself. And I realized, in the last year or so that that's not sustainable for me, that with my health and all of that, I can't be the sole driver of the business day in and day out. I need a wider, support structure around the business, which has meant, scaling and growing it in a way that I hadn't quite anticipated. So just making sure that I'm always shifting like plans around with, what's most important to me, regardless of what, the original game plan might have been or something like that.
Yeah. And I think that's a key point, is that game plans can change. Situations can change. Circumstances can change. And so we need to show flexibility and also the ability to kind of adapt and think outside the box. And so you were talking about scaling. And so how have you been scaling your business?
Yeah. So just hiring more coaches, hiring, sort of support behind the scenes and really just trying to, serve more people. I wasn't able to increase my capacity at all any further myself. So the next step was bringing more people on, which has been a new challenge.
Yeah. And so that sounds nice though. And growth I love growth. I love seeing growth in businesses and people as well. And I feel like, just hiring people can be challenging and, and then aligning them with the mission of your business, especially a business that is not necessarily very traditional in the sense of the industry standard. How do you filter that out? Like, how do you filter out okay, these people are definitely aligned with what this mission is versus, oh no, they're too stuck with the regular norm of stuff and it's going to be tough.
Yeah, well, the first thing that I hadn't even quite realized that this would be a filter, but on a job application for coaches, I had people, one of the questions was what your pronouns are. And about half the people didn't seem to know what that meant or didn't. I got some sort of disrespectful answers to that. And so that was an immediate way to weed out half the applicants, just as something simple as, if you're not comfortable or if you're not in the same world that I'm in where it's now very much known, what it means when you're asked what your pronouns are. At the very least, everybody I know, I think, knows what that means. And so I just knew that, anybody that didn't wouldn't be aligned with my worldview. So just little things like that was a good way to...
I have to talk about that. I feel like people who cannot fill out an application correctly or show disrespect by not filling it out in a certain way that's required should be an immediate X out.
Definitely.
If they don't have the patience or the capacity to fill out a simple application, and if you think you're too good for it, then there's no space for that here.
Yeah, definitely.
It's an immediate red flag in my eyes.
Yeah. So. I agree. And I got a few people who, it was very strange, who, sent me emails instead of applying, asking, if we could connect or, and I'm very open to doing like virtual coffees with people and stuff. So I said yes. And then into the call, I realized they want this job. They just think they're too good to submit an application. They think that they're too amazing to apply. And that was a real no for me. I mean,
yeah. I feel like my business also, my law practice is very against the grain. It's not your law practice. And so adding on other associates is also going to be the same thing. It's not going to be like the expectations have to be different. What kind of, the law is the law. You're practicing. But the methodology of how you're doing it, the approach to it is different. Your approach is very first, it's the human emotional approach. And my approach is the same too. It's the human emotional approach. Because you're dealing with things that are so sensitive to people's lives. But if you take away the emotional out of it, it becomes the scary, transactional, this is how we do it. And you just follow, my way or the highway type situation. And that's not how it works. And so it's really refreshing to see someone like you doing that in the finance world as well.
And I also think that, that's the one thing that can't be taught. I can improve people's, understanding of personal finance knowledge, but I can't teach somebody to be empathetic, and to care and all of that. So I'm with you. It's an important thing to find in candidates for sure.
I love what you're doing with Beyond Money. And, obviously I'll be asking you this, but all your links and everything will be in the show notes as well. Now, before we start wrapping up, I always ask my guests this one question. And my question is, what is your anchor when things are getting rough and you just feel really out of control? What's your anchor?
Ooh, that is such a great question. And my anchor, I think, is just, this sounds cheesy, but just like my breath and just sort of getting back in touch with myself. I really had to, during my Lyme disease journey, cultivate a very strong inner world and inner sense of self and gratitude and all of these things that, were hard to find during my health journey, but are now really, really able to help me like weather the many, many, many storms of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And I think that's so true. When we have an anchor, we're able to weather a lot of the storms that come our way.
Yeah.
And I know like through your health journey also so do you do meditation? Do you do yoga?
I do. Yeah.
Help center you a little bit more?
Yeah, I try and meditate every day, which is so, so, so helpful. And then really just getting outside for a walk. I mean, I find to be the most like grounding part of my day. I mean, other things are important to feel good, like real exercise and all of that, but there's nothing that makes me feel as like centered as just getting out and going for a walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Especially like, I've been working from home for like a very long time now. Yeah. And anytime I feel really tired and I'm like, why am I feeling tired? There's just really no reason for this. But I pick myself up, I'll go for a walk, even if it's just around the block, but it's getting that energy from the sun. It's getting the air from the outside and just being with your thoughts. And I think that's so helpful. So yeah.
I agree.
That's so wonderful. Well, before we wrap up, I'm going to, I always like to ask also some of your favorite books, whether it's personal or business related. I'd love to ask my guests their books.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think my favorite personal finance books are, my favorite is The Art of Money, which is written by a somatic therapist turned financial therapist. And so she really, really talks a lot about the sort of mind-body connection with money. And I find it to be a like endlessly useful book. I send it to my clients all the time because I think it's just so valuable. Yeah. So that, and then I also really love I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It just has a philosophy that's like very well aligned with my own ideas around putting your resources, whether that's your money or your energy or your time, towards the things that you care about. It seems simple, but it's something that most of us forget.
Yeah. Well, all of those will be in the show notes as well.
Oh,
and I've actually written them down because I actually love going to Amazon, like buying the books.
Yeah, totally.
And then I'm like, okay, this is going to be on my book stand on the side.
Yeah. I mean, I bet with talking to like so many different people with different perspectives, I mean, I would want to read all of the books that they were recommending too.
I know, because it's truly, I think, reading, getting education is another way to grow and to expand. Knowledge is everything, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and
definitely
get out of the weeds of ignorance. So I love that. Well, I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your knowledge with us. Yeah. And of course, your just calmness. I love it.
Oh.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you, whoever's listening, how do they contact you and connect with you?
Yeah, so our website is beyondmoney.co, so beyondmoney.co, and there's like a little form submission if you want to reach out. Email address is on there, and you can also download some tips that we have for you for your boost in your bank account, and then jump on our newsletter.
Wonderful. And then are you on Instagram or any other social media?
Yes, on Instagram, we're at beyondmoney.co as well. So you can find us on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And
thank you.
Our conversation.
Me too. It was such a pleasure. And I hope all of you listening have a good day.
Thank you so much for joining Law Chat with Girija. I just love these kind of conversations that are motivating, inspiring, but truthful, raw, and honest about all of the challenges, all of the victories, all of the triumphs, picking ourselves back up again. I just can't think of a better way to get mentorship but Law Chat with Girija. If this was helpful to you or this was inspiring to you, please share the love. You can give this video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to this channel. You can also share this with your community by taking a screenshot and posting it on your social media and tagging GBP Law. When you do that, a lot more people will be able to see this video that not only benefited you, but also can benefit them as well. So let's share that love and let's share that inspiration. And if you want more information about what I do and other resources, go check out gbplaw.com or yourcontractbuddy.com. And I look forward to seeing you next time.